Hey everyone, Isabelle Fox here. The purpose of this channel really is to provide you with information to help you to maximize your success as an escort. And that's in all aspects, so whether that be financially, mentally, and emotionally. For most of us, escorting is a tool. It is a vehicle that we will use to help set ourselves up for whatever it is that we want most for our lives. But we mustn't forget that escorting too is a profession. Up until now, most of us have been led to believe that it isn't. But my message to you here is to ignore that, because it's false. You have been fed inaccurate information and quite simply lies. The business of sex work is a business just like any other, and we need to approach it like intelligent, proactive, independent, and successful people that we want to be. Up until now, the secrets of business success have been kept from us. Our industry as a whole and us as people have really been kept in the dark and separate from all legitimate forms of work. I am here to tell you that you have the power to change that. There are so many topics for me to cover here on this channel. So last week, I asked you to send in your questions for me to answer for everyone so that we can all benefit and learn from it. I was overwhelmed with the number of emails I received, and so today, while I can't answer all of them, I've picked some of the questions that seem to come up most. If I don't get to your question that you sent in today, don't worry. Stay tuned into the channel and I'll cover them in later videos. I've split the questions up into questions either asked by escorts or by clients because I received both. Even though this is a channel for escort education, listening to the feedback of our clients is hugely important, and it will help you to become a better escort with a more successful business. So I've addressed them both. Our first question or questions comes from a to-be escort, and it's actually along the lines of emails that I receive a lot. So I know this one will be helpful to many of you out there listening. I've never escorted before. I just wanted to ask you what I should do first in terms of getting a photographer, lingerie, toys, a website maybe, and how to not be nervous when I meet the client. Should I set my prices to be more affordable? I want to target the billionaires that come and live in London, like the rich Saudis and the British aristocracy. Is being a high-class escort really feasible when I'm living at home with religious parents? Okay, firstly, my advice to most people who have never done any kind of sex work before is to begin by working at a parlor or with an escort agency. Parlors or brothels are not legally accessible in all parts of the world, so an escort agency may be your only choice. I've made a previous video about how to choose the right place, which I'll link to in the info section below this video. So just look below and you can take a look at that. Now, the reason I suggest this is because, as you can see, to set yourself up as an independent escort requires you to address and figure out a number of things. It's not as simple as one may think. You need to do a photo shoot. You need to pick your rates, find a place to list, learn how to screen your clients, organize accommodation, and a plethora of other things. I've only really touched on the start of what you need to do. And while it's not that you can't figure these things out, because it simply is a matter of addressing the problem and coming up with a solution, if you do enough research and trial enough different things, you will come up with an answer to all of those questions. The main reason I tell people to try working through a parlor or agency first is because the number one most important thing you actually need to answer when you want to be an escort is, do I really want to be an escort? That is the most important question, and everything else is actually a distraction, and also in part it's a procrastination tool to avoid doing the thing that you think you want to do. No matter how many of my videos you listen to about escorting, no matter how many books you read or shows or movies you see about the topic, nothing can prepare you for being with a client other than actually being with a client. And at the start, forget about worrying about having the highest rate or going to the most glamorous hotel or anything like that, because that's really all irrelevant. Aside from your safety and yours and your client's mutual sexual health, sex work, whether it be street work, parlor work, agency work, or super high-end work, is all the same. You're basically providing a sexual service to another human you have likely never met before in exchange for money. And that's really it. Just because you're charging $1,000 and staying at a 5-star hotel doesn't change the fact that you will open the door to a person you have never met before, and you will have to be intimate with them. Finding out if that is for you, if it really is for you, in a wide variety of circumstances and with a wide variety of different people is really the only thing that matters at first. So do your first booking, see your first client, then do it a bunch of more times for a 3 to 6 month period at an absolute minimum before you even consider the next step. And just because you see one client and it goes okay, doesn't mean that you'll be okay with the next 10 clients. Clients come in all different ages, sizes, ethnicities. They've got different personalities, different sexual desires, different levels of hygiene, with varying degrees of aggressiveness or emotional wear and tear. You might work for 3 months only to figure out that you can't stand being with men above, let's say, the age of 40 for whatever reason. In which case, the future of your working life will be very different compared to how you first thought it might be. Now, I know that parlors and agencies don't always have the best rep for taking care of their girls, which is why it's important that you do your research. Follow the steps I've outlined in my linked video. I haven't worked all over the world, so I can't speak from personal experience. However, most major cities have agencies working relatively openly, generally parading as a place to find companions or models. So start by reaching out to these ones. Now, the second part of this question, relating to prices, becomes unnecessary to solve when you begin with an agency or a parlor, as they will have set rates, which is again why I suggest it. Don't worry about that at first. What's great about this too is that if you're just starting out as an escort, it's likely that you don't have a lot of money or any money to spend. Creating websites and doing photo shoots and things like that actually takes quite a lot of money, especially if you want to do it really well. You can begin at an agency or a parlor for basically $0. You can walk in to many parlors and they'll even have outfits and things there for you, so you don't even need to own a set of lingerie to start. Regarding targeting billionaires and Saudis, I haven't personally worked in London, but I have had contact with both billionaire and Saudi clients. My recommendation here is to firstly figure out what you actually want. Many girls say that they want billionaire clients or to be a famous escort or to be the best escort ever, when actually what they really want when they analyze it properly is money. And they want money because it leads to freedom and options. You will make the most money not by seeing the billionaire clients necessarily, but by building regular, repeat clientele, which is a result of a combination of 3 things. Your ability to work consistently, your ability to attract new clients, and the quality of your service that keeps a client coming back. It's my understanding really that the billionaires and Saudis actually have specific networks which are controlled by agents who find girls for them, as opposed to them going to escort sites. So I have had contact with these sorts of agents before. When you have that much money, you can afford to employ people to do everything for you, including finding your escorts. Pretty nice life. So if you're wanting to see these sorts of clients, what you actually need to do is network within the escort community to find out who these people are and get in contact with them that way. So I came across an agent, who actually sourced Australian girls to send over to places like Dubai and things like that to service these sorts of clients. And I only came across that agent after being in the industry for a while. And it's not like they just had their number listed somewhere. It came from a friend who learned about it from a friend, from another friend. So that's really how I ended up getting in contact with those sorts of people. And lastly, many escorts either live at home or with partners, or have some kind of personal situation that means they have to be exceptionally discreet. I'd say that that's most people. If this is the case, having a solid work story is the number one most important thing. And that story needs to be as consistent as possible with every other aspect of what you're doing. So if you work in a parlor, you can do set shifts, which means you can effectively go to work at a set time every day, just like any other person. If you're escorting, meaning you are likely doing on-call style hours, this will be more tricky to navigate, and you'll need to come up with a story that matches this narrative. If you're self-managed and you have a second phone, you will also need to find a way to be able to respond to your clients efficiently and consistently, while then also keeping it out of the eyes and hands of the other people you don't want to see. Which is another reason why agencies and parlors are often exceptionally helpful. Not only when you're just starting out, but also too if you're living at home or you have to be very careful of people in your life who may notice your comings and goings. This writer also asked me about how I managed all of this when I was 18 and when I started working. My situation was different to this person's. I moved out of home when I was 17, so I had more freedom than the average 18-year-old. However, I worked in a parlor for a number of years before I ever escorted, and personally, it was absolutely the best path to take for all of the reasons that I've stated above. Our second question comes from an escort. And I love this question because it can happen to anyone if you're working, and it's a really, really important topic for us to address. So the question is, what is the least damaging way to change your working name, number, and anything associated to your working identity? I need to do this purely out of protection for myself, as I've had a client's wife threaten me, and also to the point I'm no longer feeling safe in that particular city. How do I manage losing previous clients that I'm unable to contact? And how do I manage seeing clients that would maybe rather see another girl instead of me unknowingly again? Okay, so as an escort, obviously your privacy is paramount, and unfortunately there are some malicious, toxic, troubled people, and also just some plain assholes in the world who will try to exploit this and use it against you. I've been through this process with a number of girls, and it's a total bitch when and if it happens to you, but have no fear. There is a solution to every problem, so let's go through it now. Firstly, it is super normal for this exact reason for escorts to change their name, their photos, and their whole identity. So don't worry about this being a massive problem. It's actually just a minor setback. You'll lose some clients, sure, but you'll also gain some because hopefully you'll now have the opportunity to create an even better and more targeted profile by using the knowledge you have gained about your current clientele, and you should know more about what does and doesn't work for you. The first thing I would do would be to save all the details of any client you have seen before, and certainly of any regulars. If you've had a privacy scare, let's hope you didn't also lose your phone in the process. But if you did, also don't worry about it. Just learn to use the backup function on your phone and don't let it happen again. If you've lost all the details, there's really not much that can be done except to focus your energy on getting new and more clients. So you want to contact all your clients you trust and tell them directly, this is my new profile, name and number. Please contact me here and I can't wait to see you again. You don't even need to give them a reason. If they ask, you can either tell them it's for privacy reasons or just tell them that you felt like a change, because ultimately, let's assume you're a female escort, you're a female and you feel like a change all the time. I know that I do. Now, depending on what's actually happened, will determine how much you need to change. In this person's example, it seems like they need to change absolutely everything, which can happen. Sometimes you might only need to change your work name or your number or just your photos. Lastly, regarding having clients turn up who get a surprise of a repeat visit, and that's what this person was referring to. If they now have a new name, let's say their name was Tiffany Sparkle, and their new name is now Sarah Summers, and a client who saw Tiffany Sparkle turns up to see Sarah Summers, not realizing that it's actually Tiffany Sparkle. So they're suggesting that this could be a problem for a client who is expecting someone new. Well, here is how I would handle that. The client very basically has three options. One, he stays, he sees you, and he has a great time. Two, he stays, and if your rates were lower than before, you offer him that current rate, not that previous rate for the current visit. And three, he can leave, you let him go without a fuss, and if he asks why you have a new profile, you tell him you had a privacy issue which necessitated the change, and that you didn't have his details saved to know it was him. Simple. I've never had a situation occur where any of these three options didn't solve the problem. And most of the time, the thing that's greater than the actual problem is our own anxiety about a problem. Just accept that if you've had to go through this pesky privacy change issue, then this can and may happen. Be prepared, be easygoing, relaxed and confident about it, and you won't have a problem. Remember too that it's just a blip in time. Pretty soon your new profile will just be normal to you and to your clients, and the whole thing will be an annoying, possibly an expensive, yet valuable lesson. Our next question comes from a client, and I think it's a great one for providers to be aware of so that we can be ready with ways to solve this for our clients. That way you offer a better service and a smoother booking process. Remember, if you're too hard to book, the client will likely move on to one of the other 100 girls who aren't too difficult. So the question is, I'm in the US. Typically, providers are very clear in refusing any explicit discussions on the phone or via email, at least in their ads. If I'm interested in something that will take extra prep or equipment, such as a pegging harness, what's the best way to bring that up? Can I more freely ask those kinds of questions and requests after screening? Or do I need to maybe bring my own and hope? Some providers put more info on their websites than others. I want what I want and I don't want to waste my money or your time. So how can we have that discussion in a way that's discreet and respectful but clear? Great question. Being an Australian escort, we don't have this problem too often, as there are many cities we are legally able to work. However, there are cities I've worked in where I have had to be conscious of this. If this is the case, then usually I have a screening process that requires photo ID, a deposit, and possibly a referral from one or more other escorts. If you pass all these steps, then we can talk about whatever it is you're wanting to know. So if you're ready and you're willing to do this, you'll get to ask what you want. Otherwise, if this isn't being done, or if the nature of the location is so sensitive that there can't be anything in writing, then I would ask for a phone call after being screened. Now, not all escorts will do this for privacy reasons, but many will if you have good quality communication and if you explain that the topic is best approached outside of a written context. If the escort you want to see won't do that either, and some of them won't, even if you have passed their screening process, then you really have two options. One is, like you suggested, come prepared and hope for the best. Or two, select an escort who will discuss it in some way before you meet. In most places, you will find somebody who will be willing to speak with you over the phone. You might have to try a bit harder to find them, but they will be there. And remember that you will get the best response from a provider when you are professional, you have good quality communication, and you pay a deposit. If you make it easy for an escort, they will be far more likely to make it easy for you. So basically, I would contact the escort with clear details about when you want to book. Time, location, duration, your name. Satisfy their security screening and pay a deposit. Also tell them that you have some requests you would like to discuss when possible and ask them what method is best to do this, as you're aware some topics are sensitive. And they will tell you what they will and won't do, and you can make your final decision from there. If you start out this process and the escort clearly states that basically I can't answer any of your questions until we're together, then I would immediately move on if it's that important to you and find somebody who says, well, after you've satisfied XYZ, we can have a phone call. Another escort question, and a great one at that. Best poses to have on websites ads. Could you show a few example pictures that will help gain interest? Will blurring my face affect my success? Overall advice on pictures. Okay, the biggest mistake escorts make is forgetting what their shoot is actually supposed to be selling. Your escort profile is not a fashion shoot. It's a marketing tool to sell sexual services, which means that it needs to make your clients want to do that with you. Just like if you were seeing an ad about food, it should make you want to go and then eat the food. Now, that doesn't mean that your photos need to be super slutty or some kind of porno, but what they do need to be are sexually enticing. So what do men find sexually enticing? Well, let's think about it. What do you see in places like Playboy, Penthouse, and FHM? Take a look at the photos being used in these male-dominated areas, and that's where you can draw inspiration from. So men don't look at photos, typically, of girls in jumpsuits holding flowers, do they? They look at things that make them think of sex. So often you'll see girls with their clothes being pulled down or half off, girls with their mouths open, something going into their mouth like a lollipop or a banana or a drink. They'll be in tight dresses with their legs spread. They'll be wet, perhaps lying in bed half naked. or completely naked. Then there are some typical looks that we know men love, especially when it's done in a sexy way. Things like schoolgirl, the hot secretary, the girl next door in jeans and a crop top, the smoking hot girl out at night dressed in a skin-tight dress with killer heels. Tits, ass, tongues, mouths, curves, it really isn't rocket science. If you're in doubt, I suggest you start by having these 5 outfits. Outfits are a good place to start. 1, I would have a tight dress. 2, I would have sexy, revealing lingerie. 3, tight jeans and a white top that's see-through. If you can get nipple action happening, that will be great. 4, a wet or a naked look / look where you're wet and naked. And 5, some sort of a fantasy outfit that is popularly liked, such as schoolgirl, secretary, or gym. Instead of going through a few photos here, I'll tell you something that will be even more helpful. Go to the websites of Instagram of Playboy, Penthouse, and FHM. Then pay attention to known female sex symbols. Google images of them and use them as inspiration. So instead of me just giving you a few sample photos, there you will have a plethora and an endless supply of inspiration photos to use. Lastly, regarding blurring, I've worked with girls who are both blurred and unblurred, and for those who don't understand, what this person is referring to is the majority of escorts blur their face so that you don't know who they are online. There are some who actually don't blur it, and there's always this question, because I used to wonder, do the girls who show their faces get way more work than the other girls? So I've worked with both, and the most important obstacle we need to overcome when advertising online is the issue of authenticity. The client is worried that you won't A, be as attractive as your photos, and B, that you won't give a satisfying experience that was worth what he paid. As long as you can address and overcome this concern and objection, whether you blur or don't blur your face will not make a huge difference. Sure, if you show your face, you have partly satisfied the concern of, is she attractive? However, showing your face isn't the only way to do that. You can also do this by having as natural looking images as possible. You can do it by sending ample unedited selfies, and also by having a large number of great reviews. In my personal experience, showing your face has not led to an exorbitantly larger number of bookings than not showing your face, provided of course that the quality of the profile is the same. So if I had profile A and profile B, and they were both on par in terms of quality, and one showed her face and one didn't, if we were to actually look at the figures of how many inquiries she got from clients and how many bookings, the one who shows their face wouldn't be largely higher than the other. In fact, I wouldn't say that it would necessarily be higher at all. And lastly, showing your face online is kind of like getting a tattoo on your face. You want to be totally sure that it's what you want to do, because once it is out there on the net, it is near impossible to remove forever. If the only reason you're showing your face is because you think it will make you a ton of extra money, then my advice is to avoid it and to focus on everything else I have discussed here. Or just show your lips, as lips are very sexually enticing, and it means that only a small part of your face will be covered. Some girls now even blur the bottom half of their face to just show their eyes. As long as you avoid having your entire face online, you can avoid future problems for the most part. You could also send clients tasteful selfies that show your face. So if you don't have a huge issue with it, but you're more so thinking of later down the line when you could possibly one day, who knows, have a corporate career, then you could send your face in a selfie instead. And sure, that client can do anything with that particular photo, but if you're clothed and you're looking normal, then you can say that they got the photo from a social media platform or from somewhere else. This still poses elements of risk because it could be linked to a phone number, which could be Googleable to show that it was linked to an escort page. But ultimately, you can still ease all of your clients' concerns without creating future problems for yourself. You really don't know where you will be in 10 years' time. And right now, culturally speaking, people are still relatively conservative. So don't kid yourself into thinking that photos of you as an escort won't be a problem if they surface when you're, say, applying for a corporate job. You don't want to make things harder for yourself. Our next question from an escort is, It's extremely important for me to have customers' details before going on a date. Most of them give me nicknames or fake names, and of course I can't accept the booking. One time a client wrote to me, "It's my business to take risks, not him to risk his life," slight exaggeration on the client's part, "by giving me his details. And all the girls accept fake names, I had to block him." Clients think it's normal for us to accept bookings without knowing anything about them. What is your point of view? What level of screening do you do? People ask me all the time about how I screen my clients. And the reality is that there is less screening in some cases than one may think, and yet a very high degree of screening in other cases. This is going to differ in different parts of the world, mostly from a legal perspective. In terms of safety, escorts don't have nearly as many personal safety issues as one may think. Obviously, something could go wrong at any time, and if it does, the outcome would likely be very bad, and I am not dismissing that at all. If you choose to be an escort, and more importantly, if you choose to work independently, where at times no one knows where you are, then you are opening yourself up to higher degrees of risk. Which again is why I recommend, especially at first, when you're less experienced and you're less confident, that you work through a management system of some kind, because they will have systems in place and they'll also have a vested interest in your safety. The reality, however, is that clients are just as concerned about their privacy as we are. And many escorts will see clients without detailed levels of screening. So if that is the norm, you will only see clients who have passed a higher level of screening. Now, in Australia or New Zealand or other parts of the world where escorting is legal, you will have to do less work. The presence of so many girls who do and are comfortable with lower levels of screening actually makes you the outlier, not them. So what I mean by that is that if you're in a place in the world where the norm is to do less screening, like New Zealand and Australia, and that's due to the legal framework, then you're going to be the one who is abnormal for asking excessive details. And I don't know exactly what this person asks for all their bookings. But let's assume that she asked for the absolute highest degree when other people are asking for just a name, which, as she's pointed out, could rightly so be fake. The reality is that she will be the outlier, and clients will actually be taken aback and see her as being strange for asking so many questions. And there will be some clients who are willing to give that info, but there will be many clients who won't be, and so you'll miss out on the bookings. It's actually similar to more and more escorts offering natural blowjobs to clients, and it's slowly becoming the case that the people who don't offer it are the unusual ones, when I remember that years ago it was totally the opposite. So, getting back to our main question, how do we handle screening in different circumstances? As I'm Australian and I've worked predominantly in Australia, I'll tell you what the usual Australian practice is, and I'll also touch on what I know about other parts of the world. In Australia, you've essentially got 3 different circumstances for bookings if you're an independent escort. And that is an in-call, where a client comes to you at your arranged location. Usually that's a location that you work from regularly. However, it could be a hotel that you've just rented for the day. Second, an out-call to a hotel. And thirdly, an out-call to anything that isn't a hotel. So that could be a private home or an Airbnb. It's basically anything without the presence of staff on site that can verify a client's details. Let's start with in-call. For an in-call, many experienced escorts don't really require anything at all. They'll often, however, have an apartment or be at a location that has a camera on the door, so they can see the client before they come in. And they'll rely mostly on the quality of the client's communication. They might have a check-in procedure with a friend, where they tell them every time a client arrives and leaves, and they'll also have a system set up for what it is to be done if their friend can't get in contact with them when they should. They also might use escorting reporting platforms or services like Truecaller. There are a number of these different services, and these systems can be unreliable because often a client's details won't come up at all, meaning he's either never seen anyone before, no one has made a report, or he has a new number. And just because he's a totally new client or somebody hasn't made a report doesn't mean that he is safe. Also, reports can be made that perhaps aren't entirely reflective of what happened. Just as there are untrustworthy clients, so too are there untrustworthy escorts, or perhaps people who overreact to a situation that wasn't as they perceived it to be. Now, I don't say that to tell you not to use these platforms. I say that to make you aware that if you do use them, they aren't a perfect solution. I used to use them religiously, but I found that they mostly weren't as accurate or helpful as I had hoped they would be, so I personally stopped using them. However, if you're beginning, you probably would start out by just using those platforms so you can get a better sense for how to manage this for yourself. If I'm working in a place where I'm legally able to work or where law enforcement is known to not be active, then I will really rely on the quality of the client's communication. I have a clear and good quality camera at the door. I don't see new clients past midnight. Somebody also always knows where I am, and I often take deposits. I also always listen to my gut. In 8 years, I only had one situation where I felt unsafe. So to handle that, I texted my safety check-in person to put them on guard. I said, hey, I'm ending this booking with a client that is making me uncomfortable. Stay by your phone. I gave the client his money back and I asked him to leave, which he actually did without fuss. So I possibly overreacted, but I would have preferred to do that than run the risk. Secondly, for an out call to a hotel, often an escort will get the client's full name on the room plus his room number. She will then call the hotel, quote the room name and number, and be sure it matches by being asked to be transferred through to the room. Then, depending on your personal circumstance, you might choose to look the clients up online. Generally, if you do this, it's because you have high privacy concerns, meaning that you're worried that you'll actually know this client personally. This too isn't a foolproof process. Most hotels have the policy of not being allowed to transfer you through to a room without accurate information. Meaning, if the client has lied to you and given you false information, the receptionist will tell you that the info doesn't match and that she can't transfer you. At which point you would go back to your client, tell him what happened, and assure him that you need the info for your safety only and that his information will remain completely private. Then hopefully he'll give it to you, realizing that you won't see him without matching information. However, again, this isn't a perfect system. Just because a receptionist isn't supposed to transfer you doesn't mean that they won't. So you may think you have verified a room when you actually haven't. Generally, that's less likely to happen at a higher end hotel because the standard for their client's privacy is more strongly enforced. However, I have had it happen at one of the best hotels in Sydney. So again, this isn't a foolproof system. Somebody was sent to see a client who hadn't had their information properly confirmed because the receptionist had just willy-nilly transferred them through. Lastly, for out calls anywhere else, I've always asked for photo ID from the client. And the reason that I do that is largely due to privacy. And an in-call with a client, we can see the client on screen before we allow them inside, meaning that we can see what state he's in, does he look drunk or drugged up, and we can be assured that we don't know him personally. At a hotel, we hopefully get the verification of their real name, which we will then look up. So we can look up and make sure, do we know this person or not? But at a private home or an Airbnb or anything like that, there's really no way of knowing who this client is ahead of time without ID. 70% of bookings in and around Australia are in-call. So missing out on those few clients who won't send photo ID to go to their private residence is well and truly, in my opinion, well worth it. If a client wants me to go to his private residence without being willing to show me photo ID, then personally I have no issue turning him down and missing out on the work, especially as it's such a small percentage of bookings. When you're going to a private home, there are so many more unknown factors you can't account for. If someone is willing to send me photo ID, I take that as reasonably sufficient that they won't present a problem, and I will then send that to whoever my safety keeper is, so that if anything does go wrong, they can take that directly to the police. Some escorts also ask for matching utility bills to prove that it is this person's address. I personally don't feel the need to do that. However, you could do that if you felt you wanted extra assurance. Now, in America and other places in the world where sex work is strictly illegal, the level of screening is much higher. Escorts will actually ask for your full name, often photo ID, your place of work, multiple referrals from other escorts, and they'll also ask for your LinkedIn profile. Then they will confirm that you are who you are by sending an email to your work email that's listed online and asking for a very specific response. In regards to the escort referrals, They'll usually ask for 2 escort referrals, and the escorts must be currently advertising so that they can verify with phone number and email that this person is an escort and not somebody that you just have posing to refer to confirm them as being a client. They also, as we saw in the previous question, they won't discuss anything explicit sexually as they advertise their service as a companionship service only. The idea of this, of course, is that once you're with your client, the companion chooses to have sex with you of your own accord. So that's how they get around that. I'll wrap this question up by answering the inquirer's question about my point of view. I agree with your statement that because a lot of girls don't screen clients very highly, that more clients expect you not to. And that's the unfortunate reality of how this works in any profession. Ultimately, there's a risk versus reward no matter which way you go. You need to find a realistic balance for yourself that you feel comfortable with, that ensures safety to a certain degree while understanding that it will not be perfect, and that, of course, still gets you work. You might want to ask every client for their ID, for 5 referrals, and for their criminal record, but guess what? You won't get any work. And if you choose not to work at a parlor or with an agency who screens appropriately, then I'll leave it with a few recommendations, really just as a base. 1, judge your clients based on the quality of their communication and have a phone call if you're unsure. A voice will tell you a lot about a person. 2, have a point of check-in with someone so that someone always knows where you are. 3, don't work past midnight without higher levels of screening and advanced deposits, and ideally with a repeat client. And 4, now I'm going to say this, but with a caveat, trust your instincts. I'm going to add the caveat because I actually have worked with girls whose instincts were so anxiety prone and overcautious that they never got any work, and these weren't instincts really, they were just paranoia. So I'll say trust your instincts, however within reason and based on facts. A client not wanting to send you his photo ID is most likely just him being concerned about his privacy, and it's less likely a sign that he is an axe murderer. And now we come to our last question. Are you still escorting? It seems like you are not. If not, when did you stop and why? Generally, I like to focus more on escort education here and to use my personal anecdotes and experiences as tools for learning. I'm really less concerned about using this as a platform to diarize my life or bleat on about myself. I do actually get quite a lot of questions about my journey and myself, so I'll answer this in a way that's intended to be informative and hopefully educational for other escorts at varying parts of their journey. I no longer work as an escort seeing clients, and it's stated on my personal website, isabelle-fox.com too. I officially stopped seeing clients roughly 12 months ago, and for a while before that, I didn't see any new clients and I only saw regulars, and I no longer advertise on any of the popular escort platforms. For a time, I did work with independent escorts, so I would refer clients looking for good quality escorts onto those escorts, the ones who I knew were committed to providing an exceptional experience, which is really what I feel like clients deserve. I stopped working simply because I achieved what I wanted to achieve as an escort, and then succeeded in using the time, money, and freedom escorting gave me in setting up the next business I wanted to move on to. When I began working at 18, I thought I would only work for a year. Then I decided 2 years would be enough. But then I spent 6 years working instead, which is typical for an escort, and it's why it is so important to have an exit strategy. I succeeded at that, and now I want to spend my time helping other escorts to do the same. I hope this has been a helpful video, everyone. I really do love hearing from my viewers, and I love being able to educate, empower, and share my knowledge with other workers, and also with anyone who is thinking about working. Escorting can be a really lonely world, but here with this channel, you are never alone, and there are countless people out there in the world who have been and who are going through what you're going through. We can all learn from each other, and we can share what we know, and that's really what this channel is all about. So contact me anytime, keep sending those questions in so that everyone can benefit from it. And if I didn't get to your question today, have no fear, stay tuned for future videos and I will endeavor to answer your questions there. Bye for now.